to Personal Development with Theodora. Today I will be sharing on how to deal with rejection. Many of us have experienced or will experience at least one or many forms of rejection in our lifetime. So I'll be sharing on how you can be able to handle rejection gracefully. So what is rejection? Rejection is an act of refusing, denying, denouncing, or disagreeing to something or someone at a point in time. As I said earlier on, in our lifetime, we shall at least experience one or many forms of rejection. It hurts, it's unpleasant, but we cannot avoid it anyway. Generally, rejection could start or present itself in the simplest ways, like in a family, whereby parents may prefer a certain child over the other. It could present in a way that someone or individuals could decide to reject a pregnancy, considering it an unwanted pregnancy. Then when that child is born, that child cannot have a belonging because it was already rejected at pregnancy or at birth or at different stages. When you're rejected, you cannot be or you cannot go to certain places. What are some of the things that, if you do not deal with rejection, you're most likely to encounter? The first one, you will have an identity crisis. For instance, if you are a child and you were rejected when you're still in your mother's womb, and then you are born by God's grace, you will lack the sense of belonging, for instance, to your father's side of the family. You do not have your steady roots to identify with. And because of this, it leaves you empty and seeking for validation or trying so hard to fit into places or with some people that you're not supposed to fit with. It is going to affect your quality of life. You as a person may always look at yourself as, there is something wrong with me. Why am I not accepted in certain spaces? You always look at yourself as the problem. Another one will be, it will affect your kind of relationships towards a certain kind of group of people. For instance, if you were rejected by your father, if you're female, you'll have a certain mixed feelings towards the males. If you were rejected by, for instance, their in-laws, you will have a negative attitude towards in-laws, that every time you interact with in-laws, you're always on guard, you're always on attack mode. That is what rejection does. Rejection will trap you between emotions of love, hatred, and betrayal or something towards your rejectors. How can you deal with rejection? Because it's going to present in every way. The first thing, find your identity outside and not limited to a person or something or someone. And the best way is to also set a standard for yourself, that these are the things that define and will define my life. My life cannot and will not be defined by something or someone. You set a standard that you live your life by. Work towards your healing process. If you have experienced any forms of rejection, as I mentioned earlier on, maybe as a child, maybe at workplace, maybe as an adult, or whichever form, it is important to always work on your healing process so that in the event that it occurs, you can be able to handle it gracefully without having to hurt yourself or also hurt those around you. So, working on your healing journey starts by recognizing some of the behavior patterns you may be having, so that you mitigate or prevent the continuity of rejection in whichever form, whether it is in the family or it is at a workplace or wherever it is. For instance, if you were rejected as a child, or you were rejected by your in-laws, or you were rejected in whichever way, try to work on that, so that when you are presented with such a situation in life, you do not promote the continuity. If you are a lady of reproductive age or a man of reproductive age, it could be a good time to practice some discipline, so that you do not term the conception of a child as an unwanted pregnancy that may cause the child to be rejected as they are born or not loved and raised in the way that they should have. That may affect their esteem and their quality of life in the future. So some of these things, watch your behavioral patterns. If there are areas in your life that need discipline, please work on how to discipline yourself. Some of these things take time, but with consistency and a little will, it can be done. Work on your emotions. I could say we as humans are blessed with emotions. Emotions are a very powerful force. I don't know how to define it, but it's something very powerful in us. For instance, when you are angry, you can do the unimaginable. You are filled with so much strength that you will do things that you wouldn't do when you're in your normal sense or in your normal state of life. Learn how to manage your emotions. I could say rejection is rather a big thing that attracts many things that come along, because it also brings certain things like self-esteem issues. It brings issues like anger, because when you're rejected, for some way you bury down certain emotions in you, or you have certain bitterness or anger directed towards your rejectors, and in most cases you will unleash this to someone else. So it is good for you to learn how to manage them, but it's good to come to the realization, yes, that I'm struggling with managing my emotions. Walk through how to get over them. For instance, what triggers your anger? When you get to know what triggers your anger, then you can be able to be more aware of it when it's coming, and then you can be able to snap out of it. Like, you see, okay, this makes me angry, and you choose to walk away from it. Make peace with what you cannot change. If you are rejected in one way or the other, in most cases, you're not going to change their mind. You're not. If they have rejected you, they have rejected you. You're not going to change their minds. So it's better to make peace with that and start living a life outside them. Start living the life that you can live without your rejectors. Make a life for yourself out of anyone or anything that has made you feel rejected. Build your life outside that. You have a life greater, beautiful, and more purposeful than that. It's also a good time for me to say that it is not your fault that you got rejected at one point. Maybe it could, but in most cases, it is not your fault that you got rejected. And so you do not have to move along carrying the weight and all the effects or the negative effects that come with rejection. And it's okay to live without some people in your life. If you're feeling rejected at a workplace, it is okay to look for safe and friendly working environments. If you're feeling rejected in a certain way, change your attitude. That those who are rejecting you have no power over you, because when you make yourself vulnerable, it'll give them power, and then they feel like they can always make you now justify their actions. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, the biggest remedy that has always worked for me, mostly in handling rejection gracefully, is turning to God. Praying and finding who I am in God, seeking God to lead and guide me and help me deal with it. For God is the father of the fatherless. He's the defender of the weak. He's the ever-present help in moments of distress. So for me, like, dealing with rejection overall gracefully has been through prayer, that I am anchored and sheltered by God. He's a bigger, how can I say, He's sovereign, He's overall. So what He says or thinks about me is more important than what someone else would say. It doesn't mean that I do not get offended or I do not get hurt when I am faced with rejection. I am a human being and filled with all the humanly emotions, yes, but having God in my life makes me firm that the rejection will not have a big impact than it would have in me if I did not have God, or if I did not trust in Him. For instance, you could be openly rejected, and sometimes, of course, you may react in a different way, but being anchored in God gives you the wisdom, gives you the kind of words that you would maybe say in a certain situation. It will help mitigate your anger. It will help stabilize your emotions. It will make you understand that some battles are not worth fighting. So friends, that's a little bit I could share about rejection. Thank you so much for joining me today on handling or dealing with rejection gracefully.